How long does this mating of Armageddon last?
Until the vixen conceives a litter. A dreamy look clouded Abe's dark eyes. He stared ahead at what seemed like nothing.
It is the desire for procreation that drives these creatures to such acts?
Well, yes, I suppose. Abe rolled himself forward and stood.
Circle to the back. Turn right, 3 o'clock. Walk 40 feet. Shuffle the forest bed. Beneath the dried pine needles you'll find a stainless steel T-bar handle. Lift it. Follow a cement staircase into the ground to my fallout shelter. Stay as long as you need, but don't drink any of my moonshine.
From the top of the olive green refrigerator, he grabbed 2 radios. He handed one to Carmen.
Channel 3.
Abe headed down the hallway.
And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Genesis 1:28. See? Old Abe has read all your ancient texts.
Stacked against one wall were a dozen or so 55-gallon jugs. Probably water. Shelved above the jugs were rows and rows of canned meats and veggies, and glass jars with flat brown metallic lids that contained jellies and preserves. Carmen noted several that said cayenne jelly and crawfish jelly. On the parallel wall were more shelves stacked with bags of rice, beans, instant potatoes, and at least 2 dozen family-sized cans of Dinty Moore beef stew. Carmen came to the realization she was hungry. She scanned the shelving and found a can of Wessler hot dogs. Each contained 25 semi-edible links. As she walked further inside the metal corridor, guided only by a mag light and smooth, low-intensity indigo lighting coming from small slots in the wall, a tinge of claustrophobic anxiety washed over her. Rather than a fallout shelter, the joint came off more like the interior of a spaceship, or a secret, or not-so-secret, underground military base where, just so happens, a spaceship might be kept. Carmen followed the maglite beam down the low-ceiling passage until it bottlenecked, opening up into a wide, square, single-chamber room. One army green cot. No blanket. No pillow. Shit. Abe should have informed them of the BYOB and P policy. Atticus slid the elastic from his long hair, and an eruption of disheveled red hair billowed down his face and shoulders. He stretched his arms over his head briefly, cracking his knuckles before lowering himself to the floor next to the cot. He lay on his side, facing away from her. Carmen sat on the cot. She set the radio on the floor between them. She fingered out another dog and handed it to Atticus.
So, what is the master plan?
Atticus eyed the meat with curiosity. Do you have ketchup?
No.
Atticus took a bite. He chewed. Smiled. This is amazing. What do you call this type of nourishment?
Some people call them hot dogs, but the technical term is cellulose-cased lips and asses.
Time is of the essence, but I fear that you are correct about keeping a low key until the police stop looking for us. I am also afraid that I need some sleep before I can pursue my quest any further. When I awake, you will take me to Shane.
We'll see if Abe can bring him to us. It's going to be too risky to go outside for a while.
I will not hide like a filthy rat inside this metal hole for long.
Well, you're not a rat, but...
Once I convince Shane to fight with me, we will be prepared to slay the Geminus. and your lawmen will be as lethal as dried straw on the dirt floor of an abandoned barn. Her lawmen? Really? She yawned. She had her fill of his strange arrogance for one evening. Carmen stretched out on the cot. Laying on her side, she used a bent arm for a pillow. The excitement of the night began dwindling into exhaustion. She was a damn fugitive, and for a man she knew nothing about. To top it off, he was some kind of cult member. At least that's what her logical side dictated. By his own self-admissions, Atticus was a... what did he say? A paladin knight of an order? Sounded like a cult, yep. She'd slept with cops, cowboys, thrill-seekers, jocks, and criminals, but she'd never slept with a knight. What the hell was she going on about? She wasn't sleeping with Atticus, at least not in the sense she'd slept with those other guys. Cult or not, Atticus was the key to saving Amy from whoever, whatever, was after her. And as crazy as she knew it to be, she trusted Atticus, the cultist knight. Beasts from beyond and time-jumping spiders definitely made for strange bedfellows.
Talked to my ma earlier, but I was too scared to tell her anything. My family must be worried sick. I gotta figure out a safe way to get word to them. They might be able to help us. My family is big and well-connected.
She wasn't sure why she was spilling all this on Atticus. Maybe she just wanted a casual conversation. A typical, everyday topic that didn't include bullets of soul-sucking jewelry or jailbreaks. Atticus slowly turned toward her. I will help you get word to them.
I don't want them to worry, especially my mother. She's already high-strung as it is. What about you? You got family or friends who can help us?
Atticus propped himself up on one elbow. Elder Kai is as close to a father as I've known. He has mentored and trained me since I was able to walk. He should be able to render aid, but I am concerned that he has not tried to contact me as of yet. I fear something is not as it should be. Word of my arrest must have reached back to the compound already, and it would not surprise me if the prefect has laid the blame at the feet of Elder Kai.
So, what about your mom and dad?
My mother is a most gifted mage. He pushed off the floor and sat up, legs crossed Indian style. My father is a great warrior.
Do you ever see them?
I have no memory of them, and doubt I will ever meet them. All I know of them is what I've heard of their feats. Most paladin children are placed under the care of a wet nurse upon their birthday, and later raised and mentored at one of the chosen paladin factions spread across the planet. They serve the order better as mage and warrior than they would have served as my caretakers. From his zipped bag, Atticus removed the leather book he'd taken from the bed and breakfast. Rorn, my closest brother in arms, and once promised twin, and I were both placed under the care of Elder Kai. He was to train us to defeat the beasts as the twin warriors. But I wish not to talk about this.
That's okay.
This? Atticus nodded to the book in his hand. Is Rorn's daily journal, which he wrote in devoutly. And I believe there may be answers to profound questions that I have not thought to ask about. Carmen leaned up, bracing her back against the wall as she did.
Can you read something from it? For me?
If that would please you, Madame Carmen, then yes. Here, this sounds interesting and informative. Once I drew a grid in the sand with parallel lines intersecting vertical lines to create a tic-tac-toe board. But my pursuits were not of childish or frivolous gain. Rather, I sought out a tangible explanation of how time physically applies itself to our reality. And thus, my journey into the abstract parallel lines and gridwork of spatial relativity began. But foremost, I am obligated to confess that the notions to explore these esoteric dimensions did not come of my own devices, but through strange and peculiar waking dream quests that have most recently haunted me of both day and night. A much more intelligent entity whom refers to himself in a most savage tongue as the Dark Trinity has gifted me with many insights into this world and dimensions beyond. Yet, sadly so, I do not perceive the core of most of these exceedingly complex and variegated conceits. Yet, I know too that the lot of these things are mortally shunned by the masses, and this should bring fright to the hearts of any who can even grasp the minute tip of the conceptions which I have. And there, upon the desert sand, the symbol. And next to this symbol, I drew an orb. Thus, I began to see the tangibility of space and time in relation to our Earth. Yet this was not enough to fully comprehend the complexity of what I knew. Instinctively, along with spared wisdom from the Dark Trinity, and I would need to further investigate these elements and aspects of the universe. According to some, there are 4 dimensions, with all physical quantities being able to maintain coordinates within these 4-dimensional planes. And our physical reality always travels on the time dimension within the physical framework of the 3 spatial dimensions. In my waking dreams, I have walked upon the surface of a physical realm which I do not recognize and does not render any recognition or similarities to this world we call Earth. I can only ascertain that the Dark Trinity has, in some odd cosmic fashion, transcended my conscious into another spatial plane of existence, which is not anywhere near the coordinates of Earth. It is my belief, therefore, that I have visited another world outside of our knowledge of scientific discovery. And it is there, on that strange and singular world, that the Dark Trinity expanded my consciousness, thus allowing me to realize that a drawing in the desert sand could never remotely capture the depths of these 4 dimensions. These 4-dimensional planes do not exist upon a flat, lifeless surface, but are layered, stacked, entangled, duplicated, and infinite. And there lies the wonder of all the universes. All physical quantities do travel upon the time spectrum, always going forward. But there are junctions where the physical world detours into other special layers, and another carbon copy of reality is born. But it is not a carbon copy to those who exist within its dimensions, for it is and always has been reality. And yet the other original copy of physical reality continues along its path simultaneously, but on a separate forward motion time spectrum. And now I know what the Dark Trinity's master plan is. This great and powerful being is manipulating the space-time continuum in order to create his own personal future reality. Yet, can a being who can foresee and perceive any and all variables in infinite timelines ever truly exist in just one reality?
Wow. That's some deep shit. Your friend must have been really smart or really high. It was a joke, dude. Seriously.
She fanned her hand in front of his face.
Planet Earth to Atticus, please respond.
The Dark Trinity. He's behind all of this.
You kids comfy?
Carmen grabbed the radio from the floor.
Just peachy. Atticus has this book that makes Carl Sagan sound like Mr. Rogers.
That so? I got some hustlers and penthouses if you kids are getting bored.
I think we're good, but thanks for checking in.
Carmen put the radio back on the floor. Then she crawled off the cot and sat close to Atticus, their legs touching as she sprawled out, bracing her back against the metal wall. Atticus shuffled, squirming his legs away from hers.
Do I make you uncomfortable? Yes. You are a woman, and I am a man, and we are sharing close quarters. It is not right for us to be so close.
He was supposedly some fearsome warrior, at least among those of his cult, yet he freely admitted that her presence intimidated him. This both irritated and excited her. All this excitement, near-death collisions, and bad girl smooth criminal on the run shit. And now stashed away in an underground bunker with this guy. Girl had to be careful what she wished for, or she'd get it threefold. She couldn't help herself. In truth, it wasn't that she wanted to have sex with Atticus. It wasn't every evening she got to let loose and ride the high on thrill-kill antics. And she could admit that adrenaline rushes really got her juices zinging. Total lightning-grade jumpstart to the horny system. You are very beautiful. She'd been called hot, sexy, smart, and beautiful by many men. She'd even been called a skank, slut, whore, and she'd never been one to be unself-aware. But the compliment never packed the punch that Atticus has had. Genuine, honest, selfless. Damn. This guy could start up an academy for reschooling men on chivalry and crash courses on how to treat a gal. Beautiful. Such a simple and somewhat cliché sentiment to capture an awesome quality within the world that sadly suffered from too much neglect due to too many attitudes of too busy to stop and smell the roses. But Atticus hadn't lost the romantic's eye. So sincere that it deserved an equally simple but genuine response.
Thank you.
Atticus's sword leaned against the wall next to him.
I heard once that people used to name their swords. Does your sword have one? A name, I mean.
He rolled over. It does not. It always felt silly to me to name something that does not possess a conscious thought.
Dude, backtrack. Sebastian? Hello?
This guy really could ease up and not be all gotta slay the beast every waking moment. What would you have me name my sword? Now he was speaking her language. She'd been naming everything she came across in her life since she could talk. When she was 6, her mama had bought her some new big girl panties, and one had Winnie the Pooh on it. She started calling her privates Private Pooh. Miss Pussy was her car because it could take a solid licking and hammering, yet always kept on purring. Her bong was Hot Mama. Just because.
Alrighty, I got it. Wait, give me a second.
He braced his chin on the palm of a crooked arm. The little bastard was grinning at her. Big and dumb grin. A big old Texas grin. What is that? When she looked down, she realized he wasn't pointing at her breast per se, but at her shirt with the word hysteria.